Good morning. We have created a special signal for you guys so that you'll know when it's time to come back in here and sit down and get ready to listen. And that signal is, you might remember that from the past. Sometimes you have to go back to the past and pull it forward and pull some of the good things from the past to the forward, one of these previous generations to our current generation. And that's the theme of our event this year is Exploration, the Work of Generations. And my name is DeLuna. I'm the Executive Vice President of the American Astronautical Society. I am not a bobblehead. Last night in one of the receptions, one of the ladies came to me and said, "You're more than a bobblehead." She had been seeing me on the conference calls where we were planning this, and all you ever see are people's heads. And she was amazed that I actually have a body. So here's the body, not much to it, but it still works. The AAS is a professional society, 501c3, engaged in a number of different things. We have about 3,000 members, somewhere in the area of 50 to 55, depending upon mergers, 50 to 55 corporate organizations. And we help manage or organize 4 major conferences, a couple of 2 or 3 technical conferences. We do some things like Google Hangouts, and we sponsor some activities in Washington where we try to get different members of different organizations together to facilitate just advancing our joint cause. We're not a political organization. We don't take any political positions. Our job is to advance the world of aeronautics, the world of space as best we can. Our sponsors this year are Aerojet Rocketdyne, the Aerospace Corporation, the Boeing Corporation, the Boeing Company, I need to say that right, BWX Technologies, KBR, and for those of you that have not been following, it is no longer Wiley, KBR Wiley, it is just KBR, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, System Studies and Simulations, or S-Cubed, Teledyne and Braun Engineering, the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Our education sponsor is Jacobs. Our media sponsor is Space News. And our webcast sponsor is the University of Tennessee Space Institute. Thinking about this conference, some of us participated yesterday in a commercial workshop that the School of Business did here. And if you get the opportunity next year, I advise that you attend that. There were some really meaty discussions that happened during that session. It's only half a day. It was only $30 last year. Put the price up to where it's about $100 or $200, and you'll see some of the value for it. But we had one of the panelists, make a statement that struck me, and it was Sharisha from Virgin Galactic. And she said that the small satellite revolution is enabled by miniaturization. Small satellite revolution enabled by miniaturization. So it caused me to sit back and think a little bit and consider some things. And considering past tense, present tense, and future tense. Past tense, miniaturization received a tremendous amount of enabling and creativity or creation by the space program. Now we're kind of in that generation of miniaturization that was created by space program. Future tense is small satellite revolution is enabled by this miniaturization that was created by the space program. If you go and look at some of the workings of folks that aren't in engineering, but in some of the organizational theory of war, philosophy, psychology, and that kind of thing, you'll find that a lot of folks say that you have to go 2 generations down, 2 generations in the future, to really exceed the current generation. The next generation has really a lot of difficulty exceeding or bypassing the previous generation because they remember the previous generation. They have the things, they live with the things from the previous generation. Their parents were the previous generation and created their entire consciousness of what is right, what's wrong, what you can do, what you can't do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. We had the generation of Apollo. Did great things, did wonderful things. Then we had the generation of Shuttle. I'm a Shuttle generation person. There are things that we did that no one else did, but we never exceeded the generation of Apollo. We did wonderful things. We did really complex things that weren't possible during Apollo, but we did not exceed their accomplishments. Don't take me wrong, I'm very proud of what we did do, and it was wonderful. But now we have the next generation coming, and I would suspect most of the folks working in the next generation of programs, the Artemis programs, the Mars programs, and all the things that go around them, are beyond my generation. They're not my generation. They're my kids, or even my grandkids. And I expect them to exceed Apollo because they don't remember Apollo. And my encouragement to folks who are working with this next generation of people is do not impose upon them what you think are the limitations of either technology or society or themselves. Encourage them to move beyond what you think is reasonable and logical and do things that you could not do. That's the next generation of folks working in our business, in the space business. So that's enough of my philosophy for a while. It's time to talk about UAH. UAH is, we work with UAH for months putting this conference together. Both UAH and Marshall are co-sponsors of the conference, co-organizers of the conference. We have a tremendous working relationship with both of them. Today we have Dale Thomas with us from UAH. He's the professor of engineering and an eminent scholar. He established the UAH Complex Systems Integration Laboratory, focusing on model-based systems engineering. Model-based systems engineering, that's the next generation stuff. I was director of SE&I and launch integration for Shuttle. These guys, students, are doing things in systems engineering I couldn't think about doing. They're doing the future things. He leads the Propulsion Systems Engineering Research Team and engages in strategic planning for the Propulsion Research Center. He's the director of the Alabama Space Grant Consortium. He has his master's from North Carolina State, but more importantly, he has his bachelor's and PhD from UAH. Dr. Thomas.
Good morning, and Alan, thank you for that gracious introduction this morning. On behalf of President Darren Dawson, I'd like to welcome everyone to the University of Alabama, Huntsville this morning to the 12th Von Braun Symposium. It's very fitting that UAH hosts the Von Braun Symposium because it was the namesake of this symposium who in 1961 took time out from his busy schedule, made a road trip down to Montgomery before the days of I-65, and asked the Alabama legislature for $3 million to start a research institute here in Huntsville. And surprise, surprise, he came back with a check in his pocket. This is one of the quotes from the talk he gave to the legislature. By building the academic climate in Huntsville, this community believes that this area is destined to continue to grow and become a great and permanent scientific, educational, and industrial center. I would say he had pretty good vision. And I believe we can say that space is in the DNA of the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Now let's fast forward 58 years. Currently, UAH enrolls approximately 10,000 students. If you want the exact number, take 12 off of that. It's 9,988. And, you know, being a STEM audience, we like those significant digits. Ambitious students are drawn to UAH by the outstanding faculty, the academic reputation, and the research activities and experiential learning activities. And this is a statistic talking about numbers that really blows me away. The incoming freshman class of 1,500, largest in UAH history, half of that class had an ACT score of 30 or higher. Just let that sink in a minute. That's the quality of students we have here. And by the way, when you're walking, from here over to the luncheon or around, and you see students, talk to them. They won't bite. And by the way, we tell the students the same thing. Talk to y'all. Y'all won't bite as well. But speaking to the research, 5 of the research programs here at UAH are ranked by the National Science Foundation in the top 25 nationwide. And in terms of nationwide ranking, NASA invests research dollars here at UAH as well. UAH is currently ranked 11th nationally in terms of total NASA research. And the overall research budget at UAH, including all sources, is $99 million. Truly significant for a university this size. UAH is also home to the Alabama Space Grant Consortium. The Space Grant Consortium is a network of 7 universities in the state: University of South Alabama, Tuskegee, Auburn, Alabama, UAB, Alabama A&M, and of course UAH. And it receives funding from NASA annually and promotes STEM education primarily at the college level here within the state. In a collaborative effort, all 7 universities are currently working on a proposal to launch a secondary payload on the Artemis II mission. And I intend to be giving you a status on that next year. It's a big challenge, but I think the students in this state are up to it. So looking back, I think that Von Braun would also give UAH a smile and a nod on what it has become since 1961. This morning, I'd like to thank the American Astronautical Society and the Marshall Space Flight Center for organizing the symposium. I would like to thank the panelists for taking time out of your schedules to come and talk. Just speaking personally, I always enjoyed the Von Braun symposiums in my NASA days. I find them actually more enjoyable now as a NASA alumni because I'm not an insider anymore. So getting that snapshot is very helpful to me, and I just thank the panelists and speakers for taking time from your schedules to come share that information. UAH first hosted the Von Braun Symposium in 2010. Here we are 9 years later, and a lot has changed. Now, sort of following on Alan's remarks, let's think about 9 years ahead in 2028. What's the agenda of the Von Braun Symposium going to look like at that time? We're going to be talking about ongoing journeys to the moon, both by NASA and by commercial industry. The small sat revolution is growing exponentially. It's going to be fun to attend this symposium in 2028. I'm looking forward to it. And we'll learn today about the programs and policies and plans, research, and some discoveries that are going to shape that agenda 9 years hence. So lastly, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, all the attendees, including myself as soon as I wrap this up, because without you, there is no Von Braun Symposium. So enjoy the session and enjoy the campus and your time here in Huntsville if you're an out-of-towner. And the next speaker will be, you're going to introduce Stephen? Yeah. Okay. Then in that case, I won't introduce the next speaker. I'll hand it back to Alan. Thank you.
Here you have to think on your feet, or at least think where you're sitting. 3 pieces of housekeeping that I did not do while I was waxing philosophical. The first one is bathrooms. Bathrooms are down here. You have little family bathrooms big enough to go in and take a nap if you want to. I'll tell you a nap story some other time. There are also some bathrooms, large bathrooms with lots of stalls and things if you go across the bridge or go under the bridge and across into the other building and all the way on the other side, halfway down the wall, there's a bathroom complex. So that's number 1. Housekeeping number 2 is, who has one of these? Hold it up, if you can. So now, if you want us to engage the building-wide system that will fog this up and cause it not to operate, They do some really interesting electrical engineering and communications things here. So if you don't want us to block these, go to the little button on the side that turns it on silent, so we don't have to do that. The third thing, many of the speakers and panels are going to have periods of questions and answers. And we're going to have Chris and myself and maybe some other folks running microphones up and down the way, so if you have a question to ask when it's time for questions and answers, hold your hand up and Chris or I will see you and bring the microphone to you. There is one rule for questions and answers, and that is, it is a question. You started off with a question. If you do not start with a question, we turn it off. When you reach the point to where you have to take a breath, that's the end of your question. So that's kind of self-limiting there. So if you can talk a long time without taking a breath, go to it. But when you take a breath, that's the end, and the panelist or the speaker gets to answer. Works well. So Steve Miley. I met Steve Miley a number of years ago when he had just become director of procurement here. I had a client that wanted me to help them get introduced into Marshall, and naturally you go to the directors of procurement and bring some of your senior management and say, here they are, they do all this wonderful stuff. Steve was there, he had just become director of procurement, and he was, okay, what do I want to ask you next? But he ran forward with that job, and he did a great job in it, and he ran procurements from then until 2018, in fact, May of 2018, when he became associate director to the center director here. Jody calls him her COO. He manages the center for her. He manages and leads the development of the center's business operations, guides daily business decisions, and oversees center operations policy and processes. So my interpretation of that is that his job is to make sure that all the changes they have to make to the center, all the things they have to support as we move forward into the new programs, his job is to make those things happen, make sure that the center can support and facilitate the new programs. So Steve Miley.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Welcome to the Von Braun Symposium. As Alan said, I am Steve Miley, and I also wanted to make sure that I gave a hello from Jody Singer. Jody was not able to be here this week, but she did want to make sure that I wanted to make sure and issue her a welcome on her behalf as well. So thank you to UAH and the American Astronautical Society for allowing me to speak this morning. I enjoy thinking about the future, like Dr. Dale, talking about 2028. I'm hoping that we're going to be learning some really fascinating and exploring some really exciting things and finding some resources on the south pole of the moon well into it by 2028. So it's great to be a part of the symposium today. I see a lot of faces I recognize and some new ones too. So whether this is your first Von Braun Symposium or your 12th, so welcome. It's great to be here to get together. The theme of the symposium this year is Exploration is the Work of Generations. And so it's really a fitting theme given that we are just coming on the heels of the Apollo anniversary of Apollo 11, the 50th anniversary this summer. As Alan talked about a little bit, and Dale too, the exploration work is truly a work of generations. The Apollo missions captured the world's attention and sent us on a path of discovery and exploration. And just as Apollo inspired a generation, NASA continues to inspire with feats of science and exploration today. The achievements are numerous, and they include the Chandra X-ray Observatory, which is actually celebrating its 20th year on orbit this year. For 20 years and counting, Chandra has changed the way, literally changed what we know and what we think about the universe, how we understand the universe. As its mission continues, it will continue to discover startling new science about our high-energy universe. So really celebrating the Apollo and the Chandra anniversaries are a great way to remember where we've been, but also to look where we are going and what we are capable of. We want to keep the momentum going from those celebrations, and this event The symposium is a great way to do that by advancing our common goals of space exploration. We couldn't accomplish any of these goals without our commercial partners, our academic partners, many of which are in the room here today. The institution we're sitting in, right here at UAH, has been at the forefront of American leadership in space since the origins of our space program. UAH continues to build on its legacy, not only in technology and space policy, but also space entrepreneurship. This truly is a community of space enthusiasts that continues to grow and thrive. And as the community grows, so do we. And so today and tomorrow, you're going to hear from some of NASA's best and brightest scientists and engineers during the symposium. I want to thank all the representatives also that are here from Johnson Space Center, Kennedy Space Center, Glenn Research Center, as well as NASA headquarters. We're proud to be a part of the NASA team, and we appreciate your support in being here. Also from our very own Marshall Space Flight Center, you'll be able to hear from Heather Haney, who is the SLS Lead Systems Engineer, Lisa Watson-Morgan, who was recently named the Program Manager for the agency's Human Landing Systems, Greg Shavers, who will work with Lisa as Robotic Lander Project Lead System Engineer, as well as Marshall's John Vickers and Mary Beth Coble. They will moderate panels to kick off today's discussion. So we view the conference as an opportunity to really strengthen and grow our community. We use it to promote research, development, and implementation of space capabilities, as well as increase the awareness of NASA's policies and goals and what our exploration policies are all about. So it's an exciting time for NASA as we embark on the next step in human exploration. Through the Artemis program, we will go to the moon in a way we have never gone before, with innovative new partnerships, technologies, and systems to explore more of the lunar surface than ever before as well. Marshall Space Flight Center is leading the development of the vehicle that will get us there, the Space Launch System. The SLS, we call it SLS for Space Launch System, is actually in the final testing, outfitting, and assembly of the major components for the SLS first flight, known as Artemis 1. Just a few weeks ago, in fact, on August 29th, technicians at Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans completed assembly of the engine section for Artemis 1. This is a major milestone, huge milestone for the program. The engine section is one of the most complex and intricate parts of the rocket, and this is a major step in launching that rocket that will land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024. So while Marshall already plays a critical part in the Artemis program as the lead center for SLS, we've also been designated as the lead center for human lunar landing systems that will put American astronauts on the surface of the moon. Marshall's experience and expertise with propulsion systems and lander technologies make it the best place to support these collaborative industry partnerships. The human landing systems are a critical component of NASA's Artemis infrastructure for missions to the surface of the moon, and we will work together across the agency to support this mission. We will develop a reusable human lunar landing system that includes all the elements needed to land on the moon's south pole in working with our industry partners. Whether it's standing up the Human Landing System program or testing hardware for SLS, this is truly an exciting time for both Marshall and all of NASA as we embark on this mission. So we all have a shared direction, really, industry and government and academia, looking to the moon and, of course, ultimately to Mars. We have a unique opportunity as a country leading the charge into deep space. And what's really great is we have excellent support from Congress, the administration, and the National Space Council. So much like the Apollo days, this overwhelming support gives us a mandate to push forward. When we launch SLS on the first Artemis mission, it will create a wave of momentum that will pave the way for a surge of support as we embark on future Artemis missions. When we launch the Artemis 3 mission that will return Americans to the lunar surface, it will serve as an inspiring example of what humankind can do when it comes together to achieve a common goal for the common good. A tremendous challenge, truly is a tremendous challenge, but it is also a great opportunity. To achieve the goals, we need all of us working together. We need to be advocates for deep space exploration. We really want to take that next giant leap, and Artemis is going to help us do that, and ultimately send American astronauts to Mars. So I appreciate you taking a minute to listen to me and this morning, and I hope that you enjoy the symposium and enjoy your time in Huntsville if you're from out of town. Thank you very much.